Aitah for not being happily married to my husband? My husband, 29M, and I, 24F, have been married now for 4 years. I was 19 when we got married and my husband was 25. We got married after a few months of knowing each other. Which is not the issue of our relationship. Our first 2 years of marriage were great. We were both extremely happy and genuinely in love. Things started going downhill after I had our daughter. I had bad postpartum depression and was pretty much mentally checked out or drained. During this time I stopped wanting to have making love with my husband. Fast forward almost 3 years later, current time. My husband just got back from deployment. Before he left for his 9-month deployment he was gone 2 times, one for a month and the other for 2 months. So essentially he has been gone for a year. Before he left he seemed checked out. He would stay late at work and when he was home would constantly be on the phone with his work buddies or playing video games. During this time we really lost our connection. When he deployed I finally started going out and making friends for the first time in my AD life. I started going to bars and getting drinks with friends on weekends. It's nice to feel like a normal 24 years/0 since my AD life I have only ever felt like a wife/mom. From 19 to 22 I feel like I lost myself and once he left I finally had time to focus on me and figure out who I am. He came home about a month ago and I have never been so unhappy in our marriage. The first night he was home he suggested we go out with his friends to the bar. While we were out he got upset with me because at one point I couldn't find him, so instead of searching high and low/standing alone I decided to make friends with a few girls I had met in the bathroom earlier that night. When I finally found him he wouldn't even look at me or acknowledge me. I got upset and walked outside because I wasn't trying to cry at a bar. He followed me outside and started saying I didn't know where you were, seems like you didn't even care, you couldn't find me, you were my responsibility so I need to know where you are. I got triggered at his responsibility comment and told him that I'm not his f.ck child, I'm his wife who is an AD and responsible for myself. The next few days after that he would make I've aggressive comments about how I'm not his responsibility. Now every time I want to go to the bathroom with friends he starts acting like a wounded puppy. For example, this past Friday one of my girlfriends invited me out for a girls' night. I double-checked with him to make sure that 1, he had nothing planned for us and 2, he didn't care if I went. He said to go and have fun. Hours prior to my girls' night he was acting I've aggressive. Asking me questions like why do you even like the bar? The bar is for single people, or I can see your priorities are the bar and your friends, implying our family isn't a priority. 2 minutes after my friend picked me up I get a call from him and he can't see my location. I turned it off the day before because I noticed during the week while I was at work he was constantly checking it, and when I would go to lunch he would call to see where I was/who I was with. I started to feel like he was testing me. I told him that I'm not his child and he shouldn't be monitoring my location, especially 2 minutes after I left the house. He claims he was checking for safety reasons. But really? I hadn't even made it out of our neighborhood. I feel like if I say I am going somewhere he should trust my word and not have to ensure I am going pinpoint where I say I am going. I got home late, 3 a.m. because that's how late my friends aka my ride wanted to stay, and I was the last person she dropped off since I live the closest to her. When I got in bed he was next to me and when I woke up he was on the couch. And from the moment I woke up I felt like I was being punished. He barely looked or talked to me. Then we went out to lunch and he started to pick a fight about my priorities and how bars are single people activities and was talking aggressively and raising his voice to the point I had to tell him he won't speak to me like that. During this argument he brought up divorce multiple times. I told him no one is holding him hostage and he doesn't have to stay. He claimed he is not leaving his home, which is crazy because it should be our home. When we got home from lunch he apologized, basically saying he loves me and wants to be with me for the rest of my life. He does this sh.d every time. Especially when he feels like I am done with him. And now he's acting like nothing happened and everything is fine. He's acting like I'm being an h.la for not accepting his apology or going along with his everything's fine act. We have had a marriage counseling session scheduled for weeks now. I'm at the point I don't even want to go. He's going to make it seem like our marriage is failing because I'm a party girl who doesn't prioritize our family. I need opinions. Thanks for whoever read this whole sh.d show. My 24F friend, 25F, isn't inviting me to her wedding because of my disability/health issues. I don't want to end the friendship, but I don't know how to move past this. Am I being ridiculous? Story 2. I have been friends with this person for almost 7 years. We met in college when I was a freshman/she was a sophomore. We keep in contact pretty much daily via Snapchat. It's kinda dumb but we have a streak that's over 2,000 days long, though we've been having fewer actual conversations over the past couple of months, especially since her engagement. I noticed that she seemed kind of distant after she got engaged, but I assumed that was because she was finishing up medical school. She also texts less when she's with her fiancé, so I'm guessing they must have moved in together around this time. I gave her space but I would occasionally reach out to ask how she was doing, and I noticed that the conversations have all been pretty one-sided. She doesn't ask me how I'm doing anymore and at this point it feels like she only sends me things for the streak. After not hearing anything about the wedding, I reached out and asked her a general question about her wedding plans. I did not necessarily expect an automatic invite, especially because I hadn't heard anything for months. I just wanted to show interest in her life and all, if that makes sense. At that point she told me that I am not invited because of my medical issues. I had a minor street.ke over a year ago and I have simple partial seizures, no loss of awareness or anything. I also use a wheelchair, but I'm fully independent and I take care of my body. I guess she had a cousin whose wedding got derailed because an aunt had a pulmonary embolism on the flight over? She said that they discussed inviting me and traveling with me. The wedding is overseas in France, but they decided against it. I met with her the other day and apparently she asked everyone invited to see their doctor to make sure that they're healthy. What I don't understand is, if she supposedly considered inviting me, why didn't she just ask me to talk with my doctors about my ability to travel, rather than making the decision herself? I understand that she's gone through medical school, but she's not a specialist in neurology, cardiology, etc., and she's certainly not well versed in my medical history. Let me be clear, I fully acknowledge that I am not entitled to an invite to her wedding. I can see her reasoning, and I know she is OCD and that she's probably anxious and trying to control as many variables as she can. I just can't help feeling deeply wounded by her rationale. My insecurities are my problem, I know, but I can't look at her without thinking about how inadequate I am. I've felt like a burden for my entire life because of my surgeries and health issues, and this situation just reminds me that I'm too much trouble to deal with and that I'm not worth it. Again, my anxieties and insecurities are not her problem. I'm probably selfish for making this about myself, but it hurts deeply. I can't figure out if it'd be cruel to distance myself from the friendship entirely, or if I'd be a pushover by acting like everything is okay between us. It would have hurt less if she had told me that the wedding is close friends and family only. I find myself doubting whether she considers me to be a close friend at this point. When she told me all of this, I expressed my feelings as well as I could without being accusatory. It's .cks that we use Snapchat to communicate because I can't go back and reread the conversation. The initial explanation was also unclear and unintentionally hurtful, which made things worse. I made sure to express that my insecurities are my problem and that I am not entitled to an invite of any sort. When she explained the bit about the dead aunt and being wary of inviting certain people based on that, I told her that I could have talked to my specialists about traveling if I had been given further notice. She basically said something like, "This is what we decided and I'm sorry if that hurts." It wasn't as harsh as that, but she was blunt about it in the end. Once again, I am not entitled to an invitation to her wedding, and I would never intentionally try to make her feel guilty. I just feel incredibly wounded and I don't know that I can consider her a close friend anymore. I've been pushing myself to keep in contact with my friend, and I've met with her twice since the initial Snapchat conversation about the wedding, but it still hurts deeply and I can't look at her in the same way as before. She said that they will be having a party in the States for friends who aren't invited to the wedding, but at this point I don't even want to go to that. I know that might be selfish of me. Am I being ridiculous? The fact that my health issues are supposedly too much of a burden to warrant an invite to her wedding cuts so deep that I can't look at her without feeling hurt. I've been trying my best not to personalize this, but I'm genuinely struggling. Should I bring the conversation up again? Or should I give her my best wishes and keep her at an arm's length from now on? I posted something about this situation in another subreddit, but after 2 weeks I panicked and deleted the post. I think the comments are still visible in my profile. I added more information in this post, so you're not missing anything. Dr. My 24F friend, 25F, isn't inviting me to her wedding because of my disability/health issues. I want to distance myself from her, but I don't know if that's too dramatic of me. I can't keep living like this. Story 3. I, 16F, have lived with my mother for my whole life. Even after my parents got divorced 6 years ago, I still stayed with my mom and my relationship with my father became non-existent. He was abusive towards my mother, both mentally and slightly physically. We left and moved into my grandparents' house. This year my mom got remarried to an amazing and kind man. I couldn't live with my grandparents or my mother, so I had to move to my dad's house, with his new wife and my newborn half-brother. I already have an older brother who's in college, and he's terrified of my dad. It's been 3 months in this house and I hate it. We never talked to my dad before, but it didn't matter. My mom loved us 20x more than any other father or mother can. I miss my mom and my grandparents. I see them once a week, but I'm miserable. Now we have a financial problem. My dad refuses to pay for my brother's college and he only pays 25% of mine. I go to an expensive school, but I'm almost in my senior year. I can't move. My mom comes from a wealthier family than my dad, but both of our tuitions is too much for her, right? No one tells me anything, so I'm not sure. But I got into a screaming match today with him about money. He won't pay for my college, and I feel bad for making my mom pay. We don't have scholarships in my country. The college might pay 20% of the tuition, but that's it. I wish I had another father. I miss my mom. I hate living here. School feels like h.ll because I keep feeling left out and depressed. I can't burden anyone with my problems. I cry myself to sleep every night. I feel hopeless and see no point in living. I would never go through with ending my life, but the thought of it is consuming me, and I hate it. What should I do? Talking to my mom is a no. Maybe my close friends, they're like my sisters, but why burden them with this? I feel pathetic. I can't focus in school. I can't even go a day without crying in school. I need advice. I'm just a kid. Edit. I've seen some of the replies in the comments trying to give some advice and criticism, but I realize I should have given more context. My mother suffered through severe depression and anxiety when we moved into her father's house due to my dad's abuse. She had to start working again. She barely had any money, and was depending on my grandfather to pay, and she was ashamed of it. In total honesty, in those first years after the divorce she wasn't the best mother. She was struggling so much and it was too much for her. I didn't realize it at the time because I was also dealing with similar things. But since COVID she got a secure job and saved up so she can move into an apartment and take me and my brother. Basically, my mother sacrificed her happiness just to make us happy. I'm willing to give away a little bit of my happiness so she can have the life she deserves. Now there's some questions that I have to answer. Why can't you go back to your grandparents? It's mainly pride, I think that's the word. They're wealthy, yes. But they've provided us with a house, paid our tuitions, and my grandfather gave my mother a monthly allowance. He's been acting as my father in these years. Asking more of them is too much. I can't live there until I move out, which is only going to be when I'm married. It's way too much. Why can't I stay with my mother? I know I said she's worried about her husband's son, but I forgot to give more context. Her husband did want me to go live with him, but his son lives with him on and off. He goes to his mom's house sometimes and goes back to his dad's. I think I have to mention that I am Arab and culturally, I can't live there if his son lives there. It's about religion and our customs. And this is so important, she doesn't think her husband or his son are predators. After knowing her daughter and her sister have been taken advantage of by different, close, family friends, she always says don't trust anyone, even your own family. This isn't really a question but more of people saying my mother isn't a good mom if she had to force us out because she wanted to get married. She asked us repeatedly if she should get married. She wanted to say no to him when he went to her father because of us. But when I found out I said no. I told her get married and finally be happy. Even during the days before the wedding she had doubts and said I will call it all off if you don't want this, and I repeatedly said get married. She doesn't know I'm not happy here, and I don't want her to find out or else she'll risk her marriage and happiness again. Can't you get a job or move out? There's not any offers for girls under the age of 18. After I'm officially 18 I plan on working during college. I can't move out because of how strict my father is, and my mom is overprotective, so that's a no. There's only one college in my city that has a dorm on campus and it's thankfully all girls, so if I get accepted, I plan on going there. I have talked to my dad on and off throughout the years. I lived with him during quarantine for a few months and he was emotionally abusive, but my relationship with my mother was strained at the time so I didn't tell her, and I still haven't. But he hasn't been physically abusive since we moved in. And he never hit us as kids. He only hit my mother. My brother said he was physically abused when he lived with my dad, before my dad got remarried, and he hasn't laid a hand on us since. I hope this cleared any questions or confusion. Am I wrong for telling my friend she can't stay with me anymore after she snuck her brother in? Story 4. As the title says, my friend, 29F, has been staying with me, 28F, during the week. We've been friends for 20 years and she's currently going through a tough time. She suffers from a chronic stomach condition that can hospitalize her for days at a time, which has made it hard for her to work. She didn't really work before that either, but she had no work limitations like now. She's waiting for disability in Section 8, but the waiting list is years long and the requirements are ridiculous. It's been like this for about 3 years, but her latest surgeries, including a feeding tube, have greatly improved her quality of life. Unfortunately she was unable to keep her job or apartment, so she's been staying at her mom's. Their relationship is really volatile, so living there full-time isn't ideal. The first time she asked to stay the night, I told her to grab some things to keep at my house, then picked her up. She stayed 4 nights, then I took her back to her mom's so she could visit with her son on the weekends. I'm an extremely solitary person. I have no kids, never had a roommate or lived with a boyfriend, so having someone in my house is very taxing for me. I work in a stressful environment and it's draining to hold a conversation and be engaging when I get home. I'm a neat freak with a routine I fulfill every day, while my friend is very messy and says that she hates cleaning. She stays up late and it's hard for me to sleep with the noise sometimes. I really don't like having people in my house for various reasons, but I've been soaking it up and not complaining about anything besides the cigarette smell. She stays in my house while I'm at work and there's a key if she needs to leave. Aside from minor things, it was working out and really fun until now. A few days ago, I had some errands to run. I stopped by my house to prepare for dinner later and my friend asked if her brother could come over later. I said I wasn't crazy about the idea. She said it would just be him and I repeated myself. She said I feel it, but why though, and I said because when I get home, I'm cooking dinner, then I have to go to sleep, to get up at 4:30 am, and I don't want company. She was clearly salty. She didn't talk to me for several hours. She used voice text to tell her brother to come get her later. Eventually she lost the attitude and the rest of the night went well. I went to bed around 8:30. I woke up at 11:30 to use the bathroom and I heard a male voice. I already knew who it was, so I went downstairs and saw head brother sitting on the couch. I just said, "For real?" He didn't even look at me or say hi, so I think he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. She asked if they woke me up. I just laughed and went upstairs. I messaged her and asked her if she seriously snuck him in my house after I said no. She said, "You didn't say no, you gave some weird answer." I repeated the conversation I quoted above and she didn't reply, but he left. They talked outside for about 30 minutes, then when she came back inside, she was being loud. Like opening and slamming the microwave door a few times but not turning it on. I had no choice but to go back to sleep. The next day, she acted like nothing happened and messaged me asking to take her home later. When I got home, she was kind of sheepish and sniffling like she'd been crying. I had just started my period and was extremely upset still, so I didn't want to talk about it yet. I also noticed that she broke my charger I let her use, took my charcoal powder from my bathroom, and one of my towels is missing. The car ride was quiet. She sent random messages for 2 days before I told her how upset I was. She started with a heartfelt apology, then ended with saying that she still has bitterness and resentment towards me for things that happened between 5th and 7th grade and now she wants to talk about it. I did apologize cause I do feel bad, then she said it wasn't genuine, so I told her how unfair and manipulative it was to bring up 15-plus-year-old issues now instead of just saying I'm sorry. We went back and forth for hours and didn't get anywhere. She says these issues go hand in hand, but they don't to me. They're two separate, very large issues, except one was 15-plus years ago, the other was last week. She's accused me of treating her and her family differently because I didn't want him over. I had to explain to her that she's the only friend that stayed the night with me since I was 16. I wouldn't have had a problem with her brother coming over if it was during the day, not when I'm trying to sleep. I'm also shocked and deeply hurt that after 21 years, it feels like she doesn't know me at all. I've never had a lot of friends and it's always been draining for me to be around people. She's a social butterfly and doesn't understand me, but I thought she respected me. I've bent over backwards helping her for years and didn't ask for anything. Now I just feel used. I'm no longer comfortable with her staying here, but I don't want to end the friendship either. I feel extremely disrespected and her explanation just proves she knew I didn't want anyone over and did it anyway. Would I be wrong to tell her she can't stay here anymore?